Hello and welcome to Legacy Stories with Marija and Coua. Today, I am so excited that I get the privilege of introducing the topic that Marija and I will be covering. And that topic is a big one. It is money. Um, I think that we both offer very unique perspectives when it comes to money, just because I grew up in a family of immigrants, and then Maria is an immigrant herself. So I'm just excited to dive in and see where this episode takes us. Anything to add, Maria?
Yeah, I'm so excited too. And I'm like, I did not. We just decided on the topic. So I'm like, I have no preconceived motive. Like, I have not thought about anything here. I just want to say, like, FYI, it's really windy outside. So if you guys hear like, I'm not going to be taken away, but there is some wind outside. So if there's weird windy noises, it's windy. The car might shake a little bit. It's not that bad though. All right. You ready to talk? What's your money story kind of like while growing up? You ready to start with the childhood as we always do?
Let's do
What
that.
did you get
And I
from
just
your
have to say,
parents? Wait. Better question.
before I dive
What is the money story of your parents?
I just want to say, Maria, that I think it's perfect that we kind of just thought of this and we're diving in because then we're like completely neutral and unbiased and nothing's prepared. Like, so what comes up really truly is like what's on our heart and free of judgment. So just, I wanted to point that out that this is not prepared and this is really literally like, okay, this is what's on my mind and my heart and I want to share it. So with that, money growing up, the word tight like is like flashing in my head like tight. It was really tight when we were growing up. I come from a very big family. I think I told you that I am one of 10. I am the first one born in the United States. So my parents came here, they knew no English. They didn't know anything about like having a job and having to earn money to pay bills because where they came from, they were farmers, right? So there was really no such thing as like a mortgage or an electricity bill or a phone bill or et cetera, et cetera. So just from thinking about their viewpoint, again, I think that was probably a culture shock for them, but still they did what they had to do to provide me shelter and to get the bills paid. So with that said, again, money always felt like tight. Yet growing up, I feel like I had a pretty happy and stable, I want to say, childhood when it comes to money. I mean, we never went on vacations. I got new clothes once per year, and that was right before school started. And when I say new clothes, one pair of shoes and one outfit, because obviously my parents had to clothe 10 of us. Yet I never really questioned any of that. And I feel like being the child of an immigrant, you mature really, really fast. You kind of just like, I feel like I just knew like my parents are working, they're working really hard because they need to provide for us. So I always kind of felt like as a child, like I couldn't ask them for money. So as soon as I turned 14, which was the age that you could start working, I got a job because again, I connected like money buys things and I wanted things and I didn't want my parents to buy it for me. If that makes any sense, like I wanted it's so weird. It's funny talking about it now. Like I wanted to provide it for myself and now that I'm an adult, like contribution and providing is actually one of my very, very big values. So I feel like I said a mouthful there, and I want I want you to share, Maria. Like, how was money for you and your family growing up?
Well, when I was very little, my parents were trying to like build a house, and they we lived with my grandparents, and they built the house. But then the war came, and the war there were like sanctions. there was not enough food to buy. There was not, like, even if you had money, it was lack of everything. So I remember lack. I remember my mom, like, they smoked, and my dad was not home. Most of the men were like sent off, right? And most of the women were home. And my mom and the neighbor, she hanged out always, but they found these really old cigarettes. That's what I remember, like. And they were smoking these old cigarettes and saving them for days, like a pack of cigarettes, because there was no cigarettes, there was no flour. And so, and my mom was very scrappy. She was helping, like, she was helping people. She knew of working outside, and me and my brother stayed home a lot alone because she was trying, not a lot, but as much as she could, go to earn some money, so, right, to buy essentials. And then also you couldn't find the essentials, so they were even more expensive because there were none available. And it was a lot of saving. And my mom's always been thrifty, but really that experience, I think, pushed everybody a little bit. And it was also like, after the war, I remember we came back and she worked and my dad worked, and it wasn't like two incomes, like it was huge, but we still got, it was good for us because we did get those, like, right, once a year a pair of shoes, once a year an outfit. And I remember first time with my mom, I was in high school when my mom took me out and bought me like a few outfits, right, like a few things at once. It was huge because we could never do that, and she was trying to do it for me. But also, I hear the responsibility of being a kid growing up in that and understanding. Me and my brother did not ask for much. I remember in high school, like for graduations and stuff, we had huge parties, and I know I always, like, I asked for dresses. And when we were going on trips that were like, right, like high school trips, I borrowed clothes, I borrowed bathing suits, I, right, it was never like we were trying to save that money. And the thing about saving money, the more you save, somehow it seems like you less you have. So it's just the word save, 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 it was always there. Now my dad is a person, not was, but is a person who's like, when you have it, you spend it. When you don't have it, you don't have it, right? And my mom is opposite. She's like, when you have it, you have to save it. So she's always trying to save. And my dad's like, well, we have it now. Let's buy whatever we want to eat, like, right now. And just like, right, it's like, enjoy a little bit. So it's really hilarious that I got kind of like a little bit of both of them layered in me, where I can see it. But the childhood was, yeah, after the war and during the war, it was just like so much lack that it's
Yeah.
still very weird. But that has prepared me for life, because right now I'm like, with all this pandemic that started, I was like, we'll be fine. Like, this is US, we're gonna be fine. People were scared because there was no toilet paper. I'm like, are you kidding me? You can use paper to go to the toilet. You can use a rug, like, for God's sake. Like, it was so pissing me off because I remember the war and literally not having flour to make bread. And for us, it's like, right, like what rice is in Asia, to us, bread's that same thing. You eat bread with everything. So yeah,
Yeah.
so like we had no bread. You had no main ingredients. So yeah, all of this like was so annoying to a point that I was like, you guys are being too dramatic. It's gonna be fine.
Very. I'm with you there. Yeah, that was really annoying. So through all of that, like you made me think of other things from my childhood. So we were always like a double income family when I was growing up, and we are just so lucky because my maternal grandmother, she lived with us so that both my parents could work. So I growing up, I always saw like both sets of parents were always working, trying to provide. And again, with that lack, there was still that lack. Like it was still not enough. Both my parents were actually like savers, and they still are. Like I see how their mindset really hasn't changed like ever about money. I don't know if your parents are still the same, but mine, like they're still about like penny pinching and saving and not spending. Like it it like boggles my mind. And I totally see like how I picked up some of their patterns unconsciously, and now it's like I'm working intentionally to unravel all of those things. And I'm not gonna lie, Maria, like it's been quite a bit of work to dive into my money story and to rewrite it and to stop certain habits. Like it's been such a journey, and there were moments of terror and fear. Tell me about you and your money story, and are you rewriting yours, or what's going on?
It's kind of like it's the same. Well, I first when my mom came to US after I had my kids, so she came 2 times for first 2 kids, and she it was so funny to me because we have not lived in the same house for so long. And she was just she was losing it. My mom was losing it because we are so wasteful in this country. She gained weight because she could not see the food be thrown out. And she hated gaining weight, but she was like, you guys. Then she was like, you're leaving electricity on everywhere, which is like, here, electricity is nothing, right? But she was like, you're like, she like you're using too much detergent, you're using too much hot water, like what is this soul washing, what is this, like it was. But I think when you live through the war and you literally have no food available and no, like my dad was in the war, like a cook in the war, even if you were not, like everybody was in the war, so like there was nobody to provide. And even if she worked and find her way, I think it was just like first growing up in a huge household that technically was well off. Still they
Yeah,
saved when she was growing up, but she had a lot of siblings, a lot of cousins, a lot of everybody, and they all saved, so she inherited it. And then the war made it worse. And I think it's also like for our people back home, it's kind of prideful to be able to say, to be able to have, right? You want to have, but in order to have, you have to save. So it's kind of was almost prideful to be able to save, be like, oh, she's such a good homemaker, she can save and all of that. So my mom's really good, and she went nuts when she came here. She's like, I could have a farm of pigs based on how much food you throw out, which always makes me laugh remembering that. But thinking about it, literally, she doesn't throw anything out back home. Like everything gets used out. And yeah,
yeah,
but my money story is like it's as you said, you find yourself doing things that your parents do. And I have two opposite people. Like one is a saver and one is a sender. So I'm like, right, like I'm tug of war between myself, and I find both of them in me, and working on those patterns and noticing my thinking about it and noticing my habits and noticing. And it's very weird because in the end, like you don't believe people when they tell you in the beginning, but it's literally about like your mind. Because if you think you don't have money, no matter how much money you have, you're not gonna feel like you have money. You're gonna feel like you have nothing. And I've seen that
yeah,
with our immigrant community here. There's a lot of people
yeah,
that make good money and have money in savings, yet they're scared to take vacations. They're scared to invest. They're scared because we're used to like not having so much and being so scared for money back home. When we move
yeah,
here, we're still in scarcity. We're like, but we have to save that for like the right. And it's like it's almost like, and I feel savings for me is like I always want to say, I'm saving for a vacation, I'm saving for a fun trip, I'm saving for something else. I hate when they say saving for like the bad days, because I'm like, you're literally predicting them. You're literally just waiting for them to happen. Why would you want that, right? I mean, I get it. To a certain point, you need to save, but like certain point in time is like you're just holding money in an account and not living fully. And I think having my dad's mentality where it's like we're not here to make money and not enjoy it, and having his mentality has been very helpful in that point of view where it's like there's certain things I will not compromise on. Like I do not look at the price of food. I do not look at the price of like things that my kids need, like shoes or whatever. Like I do not look at even the price. I will buy what I want because it's like, no, I do not compromise on these things. But then certain other things, it's like, right? I'm like, well, if I'm making it, I should be saving it, as my mom says. She's like, you can only save it when you're making it. When you don't have it, you can't save it then. So it's a bit of a tug of war. And as you're doing it, I'm also untangling it. And there's always new stuff. There's always like that stuff coming up, which is, it can be painful and it
yeah.
can be frustrating, but also it can be awesome.
Yes. Oh, that was all so good. I want to touch on credit for a little bit, and then I think it'd be fun because we're both life coaches to kind of provide tips, especially because we are both working on our money stories and we have come. I feel like I don't know much about your money story, but I can already tell that you've done a lot of work and that's why you are where you are. So I think it'd be fun to provide our listeners with some tips on how they can start working on their money story because I know that this is such a big topic and having wealth and having that freedom from that financial strain. I don't know anyone that does not want that. So, anyway, about credit, I just want to say one thing about credit. My parents, they were always like very against like credit cards. And I wonder where they got that from. So then coming into adulthood, I had that same mindset like credit was bad, don't do anything on credit. But it's funny because like now it's like shit, I need credit and I have no credit because I was always so like scared of it. And I've just come to really realize like again it's like a mindset thing like credit isn't like the bad thing. It's like a completely neutral circumstance. It's just what we think about it. And I unconsciously, that's something that I'm working on, like unraveling the belief that credit is bad, that if I use credit, I'm going to go into serious debt. And unpacking that for me has really set me free. And it's so fun.
Oh, I lost you. Coua. Oops. This sometimes happens. I hope she comes back. Hey, friend. I don't know if it's my end. Coua. Oh, she'll be back. Okay, I lost you. It's been so fun. And you were gone.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sad. Okay,
Okay, go, go,
sad.
go do that again. I'm like, whatever you said, say that again.
Ah, okay. All right. So should I talk about credit again?
I think you can just go from like, it's been so fun. Whatever you said, but it's been so fun.
Oh, so I was talking about like it's just been so fun to kind of like discover credit and what it can do for me and how credit is really it can be a form of empowerment, right? Like the power is in the holder. Like I'm trying to think of that one quote, but I can't think of it right now. But it's just like I'm the one in control. And I think a lot of times credit gets a bad rep because they're putting credit on top of them, where it's really actually opposite. Like you're the one that gets to choose how you're going to spend, how you're going to use. And for me, once I understood and grasped that concept, like I feel like I'm changed. I have two credit cards that I consistently use and I consistently pay off, and it's just so fun. And especially like if you have a points credit card, it's so fun to see those points accumulate. Like, oh my gosh, I spend and they give me back some money. Like that's so cool. Like why I don't get why credit has to be such a scary thing and why has society made credit out to be a bad guy when it's not at all. It's just like what you said before. It really is just in our heads. Anything
Yeah,
to add to that?
yeah, I'm totally with you on the story. For us back home, the credit used to be like a thing that you got from usually like a company or like a bank based on your paycheck, and you would repay it from the paycheck. I remember
Mhm.
that much from when my parents were building a house that ended up burning down in the war that they had to build again, which totally sucks, right? But the thing is, now I think there's more credit over there that is happening. But for me, the credit story is, I remember in the war, you could borrow credit from people. Like you would borrow from your neighbors, and then they would borrow from you, and everybody was borrowing. It was like a, if you had to do something, you would ask your neighbor if they had some money, and then they would give you, and you would return it, and then they would ask from you. And it wasn't like, I did not grow up with like a credit story. I just knew you would ask money from, and it was very embarrassing to ask money from people. Also, it was a big shameful thing to a point, but like when you needed it, you knew who to ask, and it's also in a way it was embarrassing to ask, but also I think like you need to have that capacity to receive and to be grateful that you have people like that you can ask, right? So it's very two-folded. It's not like so straightforward. um
Yeah.
but my story with credit came here, and when I came, I was very lucky. My aunt does not have a shameful story with credit. My aunt is like, credit is there to invest and to use, and like you manipulate it for your wants, for your needs, for like what you want. That's how you invest. That's how she had and my aunt back home actually had some businesses that she was working on. And I think when she moved here before me, so I moved here and lived with her during college. And that helped a lot because her mindset back home was probably from business credit. And then when she came here, she adopted it to personal. And mine was like, yeah, if I need tickets to go back home, I got credit cards really early. I got tickets. I was buying books on credit. I was doing things because in college, right? Like I wasn't a rich international student. I was pulling ends to meet. And many times it was like those credit cards. And for me, it was the
Yeah.
point in time, like at the recession, where I had to like, I was freaking out because you had no payments. It was the recession. There was no work, and I could not pay credit cards. And I freaked out, and I had to make some deals and make some like, right, like my credit went down, all of
Yeah.
that. And then I had to like rebuild my credit, right? And then like, and different things would happen and I would go in debt again. So I've gone through a few cycles right now going in debt, and there's some shame that I still have about it. I think based on like just the general, oh, that is bad. But I understand that that is just like, it's, this is how I think about it. You want to get certain things, so you buy money to buy those things. So it might cost you a little bit more. Like if you want to go on vacation and it's 5,000 and you don't have cash or don't want to spend cash, it's going to cost you
Yeah.
maybe 6,000 in the end, but you're still going to get it. So for me, this credit story, thanks to my aunt, is not as horrible, I think, as it could have been, but it's still horrible because I think we still get very, um, very much ashamed on using credit. And then I think I've heard somewhere a couple of years ago that like the amount of money that businesses owe and that countries owe, and like, and then it's like, wait, and I owe like 20,000 and this is an issue and they owe billions and it's not a problem. And it just like broke my brain to a point where it's like, no, if I want certain things, it's available. So why would I not make certain investments or
Yeah.
take certain opportunities or like even go on a vacation if I want to, because I'm scared?
Yeah. I love that analogy so much. So good. Because I think about the United States. I mean, we're like trillions of dollars in debt, I think. Pretty sure. That's a lot of money. And yeah, you're right. It's like the average person, I don't know what the average person, but like you're saying, like 20,000, that's just some number, but they feel so much shame there around that. And I think it is, again, because it's a societal thing, like debt free, like the debt free thing, it like floats around. Like that is some type of status that you need to obtain in being there. That's like the highest of highs. And I think it's just time to rewrite that. So let's
Yeah,
dive into some
I just want to
some
add one more.
tips on the ad.
I think the issue with that is because I think it's connected to morality and to being a good person, a good citizen, like following the rules, like not owing. And like all of that is very, if you really dig deep into it, it's like, it almost makes me sick that how general public has been taught to perceive it versus how the rich and the companies and whoever makes money has been taught to perceive it.
Mhm.
But go ahead.
Mhm.
Go with the next question. I'm ready. You have good questions today. I love it.
Yeah, I think that it'd be really helpful for our listeners to get just some tips, I think. Because I feel like for a long time I had no clue on where to start with turning like my money situation, my money mindset around, and like just feeling lost. Like, gosh, am I gonna feel this way about money forever? So I think it'd be really cool if we just gave some almost kind of like general tips.
Okay.
So you can start or I can start. I'd love to hear what you have.
All right. Well, first thing for me is always you have to become aware of where you are. So like the first question is, I always tell people like, where are you? And then they're like, what do you mean? And I mean, there's two folds to this question. First is like math, and second is like the actual mind part. So the math part is a lot of people don't understand actually how much they're bringing in, how much they're spending. They don't have like a, I'm not saying have a tight budget, but understanding what's going on with your money, what's coming in, what's going out, how much you're paying for certain things, how much like really building like, okay, this is what I'm spending. This is what is I'm bringing in. This is how much I'm putting in insurance. This is how much like understanding your math, like knowing all your math. This is if what's coming in, what's going out, that's like the first part for me. The second part is the mind part. And that is like literally going back. I always start with what did you inherit? What did you inherit from your parents? How were your parents? And how do you see
Yeah.
yourself repeating that, right? Or not repeating that? Like literally like writing out your money story. Like, how do you see money? Good, bad, blah, 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 blah. Like, because we can't do anything until we know what's going on and understanding that this is all stuff we have in our brain and it's not wrong and it's not bad and it's just like stuff that we've absorbed and it's there. So understanding what's actually there, what you're thinking, oh, I inherited my mom's penny pinching skills, right? Like that's what she always did and that's what I do now. And it's like, okay, if you want to keep it, keep it. But if it's not serving you, if you're not happy with your life because you're constantly doing that, okay, then let's do something about it, right? Like, but you need to know it's there first.
Yeah. So good.
Well, what you got? Give me something. I'm like, I'm gonna learn something today from you.
Like, when you were talking about like knowing the money, that just like gave me like I thought about the person because that person was me, the person that like can't even look at their money, right? So if you're in that position of like, oh my gosh, like I'm scared to look at my bank account, like that was totally me, and that's why I'm sharing this. And you don't even know what's going on in the money with the money because you're scared to look. Like that's the first thing you tackle. And what I mean, like, how do you tackle it? Well, first, you have to know like what emotion is arising in your body. And for me, whenever it was time to check the bank account, or when I had to check the bank account, it was always like this fear, and viscerally, my chest would clench up here. And again, with what Maria said, like just having awareness, like you need to have awareness around what is happening inside of you emotionally and what's happening up here. And once you do know what's happening, that's when you can actually just pause. And you've probably heard of this, but like feel your feelings, like feel that fear. And that fear, it's coming up because you don't feel safe. Like you think you're going to check the account and it might not be the number that you're expecting. You might be negative. You might have like a fee in there or whatever. And that's why the fear is there. But the thing to remember is like you're going to check it And guess what? You're still safe. Like you're not going to die. I love to be this dramatic. Like a tiger is not going to come at you. But my tip is really just to notice like what's happening with you when it's time to check the money, to know what's going on with the money. Because if you can't get over that hurdle, like there's no way that you're going to know like what is going on with the money. You have to handle like what's going on like inside of you first so that you can move on to those like next steps.
Oh my God, it's like a prequel to my, like, you're right. See, it is. You're right. It's like, because sometimes, and I forgot about this. I remember in college,
Yeah.
I was that person too, because many times, and I remember how much I was being scared because at that point in time, there was no smartphone to check your balance, right? So I would be in line and be like, shit, will I have enough money on the card? Debit or credit? And like, I had like this palpitations checking out, and I was embarrassed so much when my card declined. And recently, my chip was not working. So my card was declined everywhere, and I did not have that, right? Because I was almost waiting for that shame and it didn't come. And it's like because I know I have the money there, but also because I've done the work around the
Yes.
money. And it wasn't a
Yes.
shameful, but in college it was like I was sweating and this and it, sometimes like if we don't do the work, we can have the money, but having that card decline can cause that emotion. Yeah, and being scared to check. You are totally right. Like working through your emotions and seeing what you're feeling and realizing that in the end nobody's gonna come over and do anything to you just because you're in negative. Nobody's gonna, right, like nothing bad is gonna happen to you. You're still safe, and it's
Yes.
okay to feel the feelings. You are, yeah. And then you can check your budget, check how much you're making, what's going out, how about you, what do you owe, and then right, then you can start from there. Because
Right.
let me tell you one story. Until I was like, and I'm still unraveling this. People who want to get rid of debt, they go into this, they'll go out in a program and get rid of that once. And then the second they're done, they'll be okay for a little bit and then they're going to create that again. Because unless you deal with the mind, none of the
Yeah.
actions around the debt, because your money
Right.
story is still the same, you're going to keep getting in debt. So unless
Yes.
you deal with the story, it's like, oh, right, like if you're spending because you're bored or you're spending to satisfy another emotion, or whatever the reason is like for spending, if you don't work on the story, on your mindset, and you're gonna keep spending even after you pay your debt once, it's gonna come back again. And again, we're saying debt is not bad, but I'm saying like if you're trying to do this and it's not working, it's because you have done the action but have not changed your brain. So your brain is still the same. And it's like as if you go on a diet and nothing changes mentally. So you lose all the weight and then like you're off the diet and it all comes back because you have not changed your mental
Yeah.
work on your habits, on why you're eating and all of that. The same with money.
It's so good. It's the like just because you change the circumstance doesn't mean that you've changed.
Exactly.
$0 debt, you can still be the same person. I love that so much. And I think that's such a good reminder and such like it's so useful, especially when it comes to money. Especially like, like if we think if we get a different salary bracket, we're still the same person going to that salary bracket unless we intentionally choose to change.
Yes. Because if you're a person who doesn't have, they believe that they don't have enough money, and then you go into the next tax tax bracket and you're make or like you get a raise, for example. The
Mhm.
thing is when you don't think that when you think that you don't have enough money, that thought is gonna create that antsiness where you're actually gonna spend money in places that you're not even aware, so you're not gonna have more money. Because I know for myself, there were times that we would have more money come in, and it's like, where did it go? You're literally like, but that money, like you could not understand it, and it was because like you're just thinking, oh, I don't have enough, oh, I don't have enough, oh, I don't have enough, and if you don't catch that thought, and you're like, wait, like, but what's enough? Like, how much do I actually need? Like, really, like, what is enough? Because if you're thinking, I don't have enough, nothing is ever going to be enough for you.
Yeah, that's so good. And an exercise that I like to do with that, like that I don't have enough, is basically proving to your brain that you do have enough. So like list out everything of what you have enough of. It's like you always want to be showing your mind the truth, because it is the truth. Like the reality is, if we're living in the United States, we have enough. Like I'm just thinking about like people like you and me, right? Like we have a house. You're sitting in a car. I'm sitting in a house. We both have clothes on. I don't think I think we both ate some food today. Like it really get down to that basic level of need to prove to yourself that you have enough. Like that's such a good place to start if you are really in that like lack mindset with money.
Yes, that's perfect. And I think I heard somewhere, I don't remember, I can't cite exactly where, but it's like 70%, no, the poorest people in the US, like the lowest tax bracket, the poorest people, have more than 60% of the rest of the world.
That's so crazy.
It's like if you can listen to a podcast or watch the YouTube of this, you have more than majority of the world, because you're already not in that lowest tax bracket, right? Probably.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what you know what I want to bring up that occurred to me now? This is very interesting for me. As immigrants, your parents and me, and I am always interested what happens with the kids, because I've seen a lot of people who are immigrants who have worked really hard, and many times they're really motivated, right? Like we get education or we get jobs and we work really hard and we might be in that don't have enough mentality to the rest of our life, but people build houses, people have businesses based on where they came from. They have succeeded. They might look like a middle class to US, but where they started, where they are now, like a lot of our people are successful. They can't go too far many times because of their money thoughts where they came from. But what's even more intriguing for me is their children many times are not as motivated.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's so good. And I feel like we're starting to see that. Like in the Hmong community, like I feel like I'm starting to see that it is very prevalent. Like because like our parents work so hard, and then I'm second generation. First and second generations, I feel like kind of have basically have the same story. And then I feel like the third generation, it's almost like the privilege starts to set in and the entitlement. Like they did the hard work, like things should now be handed to me, and it their needs. I'm kind of feeling like there's gonna be almost like a balance that's gonna happen, or something's gonna happen where it's kind of gonna blow that out of the water, or something's gonna break, right? Like it's gonna hit rock bottom, something dramatic is going to happen to shift that. What do you think?
My thoughts are just this. It's a more like a question. Are we really, because we come from countries that don't have enough, and we have grown with so little. Even you, as a child of fresh immigrants, have grown up with so little, and then we try to provide for our kids and have life as everybody around us does. Because right, like you're always trying to fit in and financially provide enough for your kids and trying to provide what you didn't have. And if we're maybe not sharing the stories of struggle, and if we're actually disservicing our kids by providing all of this for them, because I know in our community everybody buys their kid a new car, and now I'm like, well, I kind of don't like that. I almost want to give my kid an old car for the first car, but people just don't do that. They're like, no, you want to set them right up right, and I'm like, or like they don't have like, well, okay, our kids do have jobs, and like I'm not saying the kids are bad, but what I'm saying is like it's not the same, and it's probably because it's not the same motivation of like trying to survive and trying to desperately succeed versus like, oh, I'm not starting. We're literally, when we come to this country, in a hole. We have to dig up out of the hole and make a hill for ourselves. And when our kids are born, they're born on a hill that's kind of parallel to the other hills like the in our community. So they just don't have the same striving. But I'm almost like,
Yeah,
are we doing the disservice where we're not really letting them struggle at all?
it's such a like a deep topic and like a question that I think would be so good like for another whole separate podcast, right? Like
Yeah,
future
let's do
gen.
that.
I have so much to say about that because obviously I'm raising my children are third generation, yours are second, right? So like we have so much. I feel like that's a whole other can of worms that we could
Okay,
totally
that's the next episode then. Let's do
come
that.
back. I this money episode has been just so good, and money is a topic that I think that we can never ever talk enough about. And I just want, like, for me personally, like, I want to just basically cut that money is a taboo topic. Like, it is not. It's something that absolutely should be talked about and should be welcomed. And I mean, that's basically how you get money into your life, is you start talking about it, is you actually start having a relationship with it.
Yes,
Any last
I
words?
fully agree. Yeah, I am totally in this kind of a mindset where I've been on a kick last year and I spent a lot of money investing in me. And it is an
Yeah,
experience that has been like no other, because like you are investing in yourself. Like you are the investment, right? And it's
yeah,
very interesting and it's very scary because like, well, shit, if this doesn't work, right? Because it's all on you and it's all in you. But at the same time, it's
yeah,
very powerful. What I tell people is like, it is very powerful to be able to go in that in order to do that. For me, it has been, because I can't, like, as a scientist, I can't make that much money to afford all of that right now with three small kids. So, like, the option to change my life or maybe do something else or explore something else or start a business or whatever, it has to be that. So for me, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing how much money is available to me. Like I was just like,
yes, yeah.
but that's
I
it
love
for me.
what you said.
And it's like, don't be scared of that. Think about it.
Remember, like what Maria said, this one that it really blew my mind. You are the investment. So that's a thought that you can take with you everywhere. Like say to yourself, I am the investment, because you are. When you spend money, you are the investment. So so good. I love that you said that.
Yay, this was
All right.
awesome. All
This
right,
was
everybody.
such a good conversation. It was so good to talk with you, and we hope that you will be back next time. So stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.